Over the past couple of days, I've worked through the PCP Never Going Outside video. It was strange to me that during that whole podcast, nobody really mentioned not having a choice. I've had huge periods in my life, years, where going out wasn't a choice. I was terrified to go outside. I wanted to, but I couldn't. And sure, you can say that, yeah, you do have a choice, but when you have social anxiety that bad, it is so hard, as in painful in a way that nobody has ever felt it would not understand. I can't speak for the feelings and experience of the guys from the Pro Crastinators Podcast, but this was such a huge problem for me personally a few years ago. I found a lot of stuff that they spoke about really relatable, except for this one thing. Things are different for me now. I have a 9-to-5 job, and I live independently with my partner. To this day, staying home and doing my thing is still my favourite thing to do. Whenever I'm not at work, I'm at home watching, playing, or listening to things. Usually it's more than 2 of those at once. The point is, it's a choice now. Before, I literally wouldn't do anything because I had no money, and even if I did, I found being outside around other people really stressful and frightening. One time I even had an autistic guy I met at an anime convention call me a shut-in, amongst other things. As a result, I didn't go to conventions for 4 years or so. Being called a shut-in might not sound that devastating to you, but it was to me, and the reason is, I felt like it wasn't my choice. I felt like it wasn't fair. I tried to go outside, but whenever I did, I felt awkward, ugly, and incapable. I was constantly thinking people were judging me, and I hated that I could barely talk to people in shops when I wanted things. To this day, I still can't go into shops where there aren't other customers if I'm by myself, because I want the option to just look at things and not have a person talk to me. And this is because knowing they can see me makes me so self-conscious that I can no longer concentrate on what I'm doing. Now that I work, I'm having situations arise all the time where people ask me what I'm doing on the weekend, and it triggers this internal debate inside me. On the one hand, I want to be able to live my lifestyle and not be ashamed of it or have others judge me. On the other, I don't want to be dismissed because I say something like, I'm just going to relax at home. Relax at home really meaning that I'm going to spend half my day playing games and the other half watching shows, and that's what I want to do. And that's because truly, I'm not interested in going out or doing things. I mean, I still need to go outside and get groceries and things like that, but even then it's not really something that I want to do. I'm just aware of the fact that I need food, so it sort of forces me to go to the supermarket to get it. But that's really all I do. I mean, I don't go out and go to, bars and things like that. In fact, I've never actually really been to a club or a bar or anything at all because I don't care. I'm not interested, and I'm certain that if I tried to go there, I wouldn't have a good time. It's just not really my thing. And why should that be a problem? I've had times in my life where I've been around people and I've been talking about going to clubs and things like that, and I just don't care. It's not like I'm judging them for wanting to do that, because I'm sure that they have plenty of fun, or maybe they don't. Maybe it's just something that they do for whatever reason. The point is that I know that if I were to go to these places, I would be sitting there and I would just be thinking about, like, my God, I just want to be at home in my pajamas watching shows and, drinking tea or coffee or whatever, like. And it doesn't even really factor in, like, half the time when I'm at home doing the same things, I am quite literally doing the same things. I've thought about this before, like the fact that I can play the same game over and over and over again, and I don't really feel bad about it. Now, when I say over and over again, I don't literally mean, I start something and then I finish it and then I start it again. I mean, I've played Zelda Ocarina of Time from start to finish practically every single year since I first got that game, because it's my favourite game and it's just so infinitely playable to me, and I can just keep going every single time because I always find something new. You wouldn't really think that, given the limitations of that game, but somehow I do, and I think it's got to do with the fact that, life changes and I change, and as I change, I can go into the game with fresh eyes all the time, and I'm the first person to admit, actually, that my memory isn't exactly fantastic. The point is that you forget half the stuff, and I can tell you right now, straight up, what, like, the actual gameplay of Zelda goes like, and what you do, and what happens in the plot, but I can't remember, exactly the way characters express themselves or say things, or, you know, musical cues and little bits of animation and things like that. It's all new, and I don't think that there really should be any problem with enjoying the same stuff over and over, as long as there's some new stuff kind of mixed in. I also have this weird thing about wanting to try new things, but also at the same point in time, I constantly expect to be disappointed by stuff. I'm weirdly cynical in that way, unless if something is already made by a person or team that I know that I like their work, and even then I'm a bit skeptical. Generally, it will take me a while to really give something a go, and I'm one of these people that my immediate gut reaction to stuff is that I don't feel anything, or I kind of hate it, and I felt like this about most of my favorite things. I mean, I love MLP, but the first time I watched the first couple of episodes of My Little Pony, I was like, oh god, this is exactly what I expected it to be, and it doesn't hold anything for me at all. And ironically, I hated my favorite character. And that's also true of Gotham, which is another big favorite of mine. The first episode of that was really poorly paced, and I was just thinking to myself, because I was looking forward to this thing for a fair while, and even though I wasn't that surprised that I was let down by the first episode, all I could think was, if the rest of the show is paced like this, my god, I'll drop it that quickly, because I just can't, you know, I really like things to be able to have this space to breathe. It's kind of strange when you try to talk to people who don't have this sort of insular lifestyle about, well, anything really. And I mean, a lot of people who, you know, don't spend their time like this, they don't really get it. And also, I find in my own personal experience, they sort of get bored straight away and they're not really interested. But I have the same problem with them in the opposite sort of way. Like, I try to talk to some of these people, and I try to open up a conversation about things that they like, or shows and stuff like that, and they can say to me, you know, oh yeah, I like, you know, Netflix Daredevil, that's great, I love that show. And then I start to talk to them about characters using their names and various episodes and things like that, and like, they just really, they're not that into it, or they don't even remember this sort of stuff, and they quite literally watch the show like from start to finish the previous day. And it's really disappointing to me, because sometimes I just forget that not everyone is as into the stuff that they spend their time, you know, watching and listening to and playing and that sort of thing. And it just surprises me, because I don't understand how someone could go into something and not really engage their brain. But I mean, that sounds kind of harsh. That's not really what I'm trying to say. Like, it's fine to watch a show or listen to something and just enjoy it for what it is and not think about it. In fact, I even sort of envy that, because I've gotten to the point in my life now where half the time I already know what's going to happen, because I've watched so many, you know, anime and TV shows and movies, and I'm just so genre savvy, and I didn't even want to become like that, but now it's like I have no control over it. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest difference, because what these people want to hear is the sort of stuff that they've been doing. So when they talk to you and they say, you know, what did you do on the weekend? And you say, oh, yeah, I played this game, or I watched that show. And then they sort of don't even really tell you about what they were doing, because what they were doing is probably like, I mean, going to the beach to tan or something like that. I mean, I live in Australia near a beach, so this isn't like a weird thing. This is the thing that most people do. And it's strange, because I get as bored with that as I feel like these people are with the stuff that I want to say, or the stuff that I'm interested in. And I continually try and find ways to, you know, engage people when it's not about stuff that they're passionate about, like shows and things like that. Like, I know that some people are really into sports, and I just, like, I can't really get into it, because it seems sort of futile and weird to me. Like, I understand that other people like it, but I just don't care. I mean, even when I try to care, I can't really care, and I find myself just checking out and thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner later that night and stuff, and I don't like that, but I've tried to fight it, and I don't really have a lot of control over it. I mean, when you're not interested in something, you're just not interested, especially if you've made an honest effort. And yeah, I don't know. I think I would like to see a little bit more open-mindedness and friendliness between people with different kinds of lifestyles. I've had times where, you know, I've spoken to extended family or people like that, and they sort of have this feeling like, you know, oh, you should go out and travel and see the world, or, you know, they have more respect for someone who's quote unquote doing things, even though in my opinion the things that you do in your house when you're consuming stuff and thinking about it is just as worthwhile as things you do outside of your house. In fact, there's actually, I would say, this weird sort of difference, because when you're out and you're doing stuff, a lot of the time it's active stuff and you're fully engaged in it, so you can't really think about it at the time, whereas the stuff you do at home tends to be more sort of when your body is relaxed and your mind is working more. That's not to say that one is better than the other. In fact, that, like, people should probably have a healthy balance, although, you know, whatever, each person to their own. Yeah, I think I don't see why there's really this stigma against indoorsy types. Like, the fact that shut in is even a phrase and it's a derogatory, just sort of, I don't see the point in it, like putting other people down just because they've chosen to live their life a different way. Like, if it doesn't affect you, then who cares? Like, it's not as if they're going to be interfering with the way that your life will turn out. I mean, maybe it would be a bit different if you're like a parent and you see your child and you want them to go out and do things, but even then, like, if you're a parent, what business is it of yours really to determine what your child should do with their life? As long as they're not really unhealthy. And I think that's where it gets complicated, because I think about something like my former situation where a lot of me staying inside sort of, it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but at the same point in time I think about if my grandmother or my mum had tried to push me out of the house more, I probably would have moved into a really sort of resentful kind of place, and I would have, you know, done the same thing anyway, and I probably would have pushed it harder. But fortunately, I come from a really loving family that sort of just let me do the things I want to do and don't really judge me at all. I wish more people could have that. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this.